think about the way. Don't think about the way we used to move. Don't think about the way. Don't think about the way we used to move. Hi everyone, welcome back to Ask the Producer series, where last week we released a how to record your vocals, like a quick tip, 7 tips of how to set up your recording space and how to record your vocals into Soundtrap. Today we are getting into how to mix them. So first off, as you heard in the beginning, I was recording a little bit, but now let's jump into it.
I'm sorry.
So now we have this recording. Don't think about the way. So as I was talking about last week about the proximity effect, being closest to the mic gives you that bassy, warm kind of feeling. Also, depending on the mic you have. This is a large diaphragm microphone, condenser microphone at that. So with that, we're going to process it accordingly. Now, with the loud and clear preset that we have for vocals, we already have a lot of things set up for us. So I'm going to start off here. With the loud and clear preset, we already have a lot of things done for us. So we have the order of effects, etc. So we're going to put that on. We're going to open up the effects, and here I have grayed out all of them just for the sake of this video. Now we're going to start by working our way through this. So we have a filter, we have a visual EQ, we have a dynamic compressor, clipper, and then some space effects. So actually, you know what? Let's do this from scratch on how I would do this. So first off, we have the filter. Now, what the filter does is if we engage this and listen to the vocals, we can hear what it does. Don't think about low cut, cuts out the bass. Don't think of it becomes that radio kind of effect. Also the high cut, if we listen to that back. Don't think about the way. You hear a lot of that sibilance and you hear a lot of that clarity being cut out. So I only want to use the low cut here. So this is kind of a just good rule of thumb for a lot of audio engineering and mixing, is to cut out everything that you don't need. So in this case, my voice is pretty bassy, so I'm going to start at around 80 hertz. Where, you know, like things like kicks and basses that are way further down, but we don't want any of the puffs or stuff. I do have a pop filter here, but any other bassy, rumbly things to come through, because that's just a necessary noise at that point. And all of your tracks kind of sum up to this noisy bass floor. So that's what we want to avoid. So that's why the filter is there. So now we have this. Don't think about the way. And immediately I can hear some things that I want to take out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the visual EQ, go to open, and here as we play, we should be able to see a visualizer in the background. Don't think about the way. So my voice is around 200 hertz, and that is sort of where the lowest frequency of what I am actually singing. So what we can do here is go into the EQ and try to figure... So what we can do here is to go into the EQ and try to figure out a couple of things that I want to take out. And here are the things to take note of. Don't think about the way. So, for the human voice, don't think about the way we used to move. You get a weird kind of like about the way. Throaty feeling around 250. Don't think about the way we used to move. So, might want to take a little bit of that out. Don't think about the way we used to move. And we're not going to go way too crazy with this. And then the next one is around 500. Don't think about the way we used to move. 500 being very nasally. Don't think about the way. Don't think about the way. So I'm going to be very kind with this. Now with the low end, as you can see, we can just assume. Don't think about the way we used to move. A lot of that low end to just be able to be cut out. We have that with the low cut already, but if you were to do this with only the visual EQ. The last thing to keep track of in the higher frequencies is if you're missing a lot of the frequencies that are like in your consonants and stuff like that, especially if you're rapping, then you want don't think about the way to focus on around 4K to 6K. So that's what I'm going to do now. Think about the way. Don't think about the way we used to move. Don't think about the way. Don't think about the way we used to move. Don't think about the way. Also, with that, now we can actually start hearing something a little bit annoying. So let's see what that is. It's right in between. My earphones are actually leaking into the mic, as you can hear. Don't. It's very, very faint. So I'm going to pull that up so you can hear that. Don't. So what we can do here is something that we have in the instrument panel. As we select the track, we can now go to vocal cleanup. So now we can take out a lot of that kind of like just the middle parts of it and get rid of a lot of that noise. So let's listen to it with medium. Don't think about the way. Now, so this is a little bit of a give and take. When it comes to noise removal, you're giving away a little bit of like that high intelligibility for getting rid of all that noise. Don't think about the way. Don't think about the way. So I'm losing a little bit of that high end. So what I want to do is I'm going to go for low. I'm going to apply that. And now also in that same kind of like vibe, we're going to go for vocal tuner where we have the root key as the project we already set for E. And then we're going to listen to it. Don't think about the way. Actually, you know what? Let's just jump to extreme for the sake of it so we can hear the difference. Don't think about the way. So you can hear that little jump between the two notes. I want to avoid that. I want it to sound sort of natural. So I'm going to go for a light setting. Could go for medium, possibly. Don't think about the way. Has a little bit of that kind of uncanny feeling. So I want to go into light. I'm going to apply that. Now we have the full vocal with everything processed. So once all of that is done, we are going to go into compression. Now, one thing to be very mindful of is compression is sensitive to amplitude, which is basically the volume of your track. So one thing to note is that compressor, if you don't want it to be affected by anything previously, put it as early in the chain as possible. So actually what I'm going to do is to put the dynamic compressor between the filter and visual EQ, because if I go into the EQ and boost something later, the compressor is going to start changing based off of that. So that's why keeping it filter, dynamic compressor, then visual EQ is a good idea. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just barely going to be affecting the high ends a little bit. I just wanted to level out a little bit because as you can hear my voice, and also as you can see in the audio file here on the left side, it's a little bit louder than in the center. So what I want to do is just listen to it. I wanted to take off maybe like 3 dB of gain reduction, which you can see here on the GR meter right here. That stands for gain reduction. Another thing to be mindful when you're setting your attack and release values is for vocals, you want it to catch pretty early because you really just want to keep those peaks down. With the attack, if you have something like 0 milliseconds, you're going to get a very fast slamming door, which is going to cause a little bit of distortion. So a good tip, if you're hearing that distortion, try to keep it like above 0.5. I think that's a good rule of thumb. So I'm going to keep it like around there for the sake of the video. And now we can go a little bit lighter on the release. We can go somewhere along like 30 to 100 milliseconds, depending on what you like. But now that we've set this, I'm going to keep the ratio pretty low key. It's on 3 now. And then the threshold, we're going to adjust that based on the gain reduction. So let's see. About the way. Don't think about the way we used to move. So now if you listen to it without, don't think about the way. It is a lot louder, but a lot of the kind of life and a little bit of that like sort of raw density comes out with the compression on. Don't think about the way we used. So it has a sound there that is like really, really good for vocals. Now, with that said, let's just leave the compressor as is. Now, let's move on to a little bit of saturation, which is typical for vocals in pop and a lot of hip hop as well, because you want that intelligibility to be out there. So I'm going to add a clipper. I'm going to pull the mix down quite a lot because I don't want much of it. Let's make sure it's set to soft. Let's make sure the makeup is a little bit higher. And then we can just sprinkle in a little bit of saturation. Used to move. Don't think about the way. Don't think about the way. Now we're getting there where I'm sort of starting to hear it. So if we listen to it without, we used to move. Don't think about the way. Don't think about the way. So it's just a little bit on the top there, but as you give it that little bit, it's going to make a lot of difference when you listen to it with the full track. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what it sounds like with and without. Don't think about the way. So that was with, now without. Don't think about the way. And now it is a lot louder. So let me just pull this down so you can hear. Let's say that we're trying to listen to them so they're pretty much at the same level. Don't think about the way. So with that, and then that was without, and now with. Don't think about the way. See, it cuts through a little bit easier throughout the mix. Now, something that I am hearing is that here, somewhere in the lower end, I think it's around the 200 mark. Let's see. Don't think about the way we used to move. Don't think about the way. So that needed a little bit more. Let's listen to it. Don't think about the way. Nice. So these are very minute details and very like sort of small changes that you can make to your audio. But that's the thing. The human voice is really, really sensitive to processing. These small differences is going to make a lot of difference when you want it to sound natural. Because if you can imagine, human hearing has evolved for centuries and eons, right? And the thing is, our hearing is attuned to our voices. That is what we're especially good to hear because we want to make sure that we can communicate with each other. So when you start making a lot of these changes, so let's say I would just pull up the low cut. Don't think about the way. Already there, we start hearing that difference in the vocals. Don't think about the way. That doesn't sound really natural, does it? So going back to 80. Don't think about the... Now we have that warmth there. Finally, we can jump into some spatial effects just for the sake of it. So I'm going to add a reverb and a modulate. These are usually just like good standard things to put on your vocals. One thing that I want to be mindful of is the reverb because sometimes you don't want the vocals to sound wishy-washy with all of that reverb on. But in a production like this, don't think about the way. So let's just leave. Don't think about the way. Don't think about the way we used to move. Don't think about the way. So as you can hear, it fills out a lot of that space. One thing we can do with a very percussive kind of backing track that we have here, if we add a modulate instead and time it, so make sure that it's on quarter notes or eighth notes, whatever you like, it's going to sound a lot wider without sounding that wishy-washy kind of everywhere. So let's cut off the low cut a little bit because in the same sense of where we don't want it to be too muddy and a lot of that bass coming in, we want to cut that out. Now, think about the way. Don't think about the way we used to move. Let's change it to eighth notes. Don't think about the way. Pull the mix down. Don't think about the way we used to move. Don't think about the way. And now we can add the reverb afterwards with a little bit less. And now we get don't think about the way. Don't think about the way we used to move. And even now, I can pull down the volume a little bit because I think it's a little bit too loud. Don't think about the way. You can still hear my voice perfectly fine. Don't think about the way we used to move. Don't think about the way. And now from here, you can be however creative you want, but this is a good layer to start from. So we have the filter cutting out the low rumble. We have the dynamic compressor making sure that everything sounds tight. We have the visual EQ. A good rule of thumb, actually, now that I mention it, is when we're playing and we're listening through what we want to take out, boost. Don't think about the way we used to move. And you can hear the things that you don't like. So that is my best technique to tell you from here. Now, if you want to substitute these with brighter and compressor one, you can do this. Just make sure you do it in the same order. If you don't want to get all too nitty gritty and techie with the details, you can add the brighter compressor one. You have the reverb, which is also just a one knob technically. Just make sure you cut out that little bit of low end. The real important thing I think for a lot of you out there is to make sure that you have that filter on, to make sure you get rid of all that stuff you don't need. And the same thing goes with everything else in your tracks. If you're recording any other audio, or if you just want to start mixing, make sure you cut out all of the things you don't need, because you have a finite space and you need to make sure that everything fits. With that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Ask the Producer. Now, if you have any other questions that you want me to answer in one of these videos, leave them in the comment section down below and I will make sure to read them. But after all that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.
Sorry.